Three, two, one. All right. Three, two, one. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to episode 12. This is the diet strategy video, and we're going to be talking about my diet, my general thoughts on diet, my plans moving forward, my current plan, and basically some tips and advice for myself as well as you guys. And yeah, gonna just talk about my general thoughts, got a few notes here to the side, and just gonna progress that way. So cool. One sec. All right. In terms of making the diet, this is what I think you should consider when it comes to making it. So obviously the obvious things like the amount of meals you can have a day, your activity level, and your budget and your time. I think those are the main things, and I think protein and external factors are the additional things. So obviously amount of meals per day, there is this stigma that you can only synthesize about 40 grams. Not even a stigma, it's just a general consensus that you can only synthesize about 40 grams of protein per meal. Where I think, and I more or less know, that if you make your body adapt to having one meal a day, but with 200 grams of protein or 300 grams of protein, your body will find a way to synthesize those meals because the human body is a remarkable thing and it can adapt to different scenarios and different living situations. Well, I mean, you see a lot of people in third world countries who may only eat one meal a day and are ridiculously jacked. Obviously, genetics come to play, training comes into play, but ultimately, if they only eat one meal a day and they have enough protein to create muscle, then why not? You know. So, a amount of meals a day is a factor. How much and in relation to that time, because how much time do you have to cook? How much time do you have to eat? How much time do you have to prep? Things like that. Activity level is important when it comes to working out calories. And additionally, budget. So, depending on your budget, may influence the things you can buy. But I mean, personally, I'm on a 50 pounds a week budget. In dollars, I think that might be $65 a week, something like that. Let me quickly work it out. Pounds to dollars, £50 in dollars. Okay, bear me 1 second. And it is, yeah, $66 at the current exchange rate. So yeah, about $66, £50. I think that's personally enough for me to get everything I need. The most expensive thing, obviously, is protein. Um, I don't really get many other things apart from that. I try and keep my diet very simple, very effective. And moving on to the actual protein, there is the common knowledge that you have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And I think the actual math is 0.8 uh, of your body weight, a gram of protein to 0.8 of your body weight. So if you were, let's say you were 200 pounds, you would have do 200 times 0.8, 176 grams of protein is what you would need to maintain your weight. Obviously, you eat more protein, you eat protein in excess, so you can have a higher probability of actually synthesizing that protein and creating muscle fibers. But that's all subjective, and if you eat the protein you need, you definitely put on the weight or the muscle, in fact. Uh, and then the external factors like your religion, your situation, where you are in the world. For example, if you're a practicing Muslim, if you are part of the Islamic faith, you can't eat pork, so that really cuts down the amount of sources you have for protein. Not really, but in the UK, pork is a very, very common protein source that's eaten. I personally don't eat pork. for personal reasons. Um, and many of you might not as well, or many of you may enjoy pork. Um, Things like accessibility. If you're in a third world country, you may struggle to get good, clean sources of protein. You may live on a farm, so you have your own sources of protein on the farm, and obviously it's what you bring in to the farm. If you have a farm, you have chickens, you have cows, you may butcher one cow and have enough food for months. I don't quite know how it works, but that is an external factor, and many other things. If you have a disability, perhaps you may have to find someone to do all these things for you. Um, yeah, it's just down to the person, but in general, sticking to these is very, very. Um, in general, sticking to these is very controlled and rigid and making your diet. Cool. Let's quickly go over this. This is very basic knowledge. The types of diets. Obviously, you have a cut and a bulk, or a shred and a gain. Very obvious. I'm not really going to read them out. They make sense. Everyone should know that when you cut, you lose weight. When you bulk, you gain weight. General rule is you either eat over maintenance, so you eat so less calories in as opposed to going out. Well, I mean it's calories in versus calories out. If your calories out a day is 2,000 and you eat 1,500, you're gonna lose weight. If your calories in a day is 2,500, your calories out is 2,000, you're gonna gain weight. Very simple. Um, and in terms of specifically for the cut, you want to keep a high protein to your body weight ratio. So, like earlier, 220 pounds. You ideally, if you're cutting, you'd want to be eating 220 pounds worth of protein, so 220 grams, and then you'd bring the carbs down because carbs have the most amount of calories per gram. Pretty sure it's 16 calories per gram of carbs on average. It is 8 calories per gram of fat, and it's 4 calories per gram of protein. I'm fairly certain that's how it works, but that would be a good way of looking at it. And then the opposite is true for bulk. You'd want to, well, not the opposite, in terms of the calories is opposite, but in terms of your structure, you increase the carbs, so you have more energy. You have more energy available for the muscles to build the protein because you actually need glucose and carbs create glucose, I'm pretty sure, or they're related in somehow way or fashion to supplement to create those new muscle fibers. Obviously, you can do it on a low carb diet. Keto diets are a thing where they produce ketones, which is the energy source. So it's give or take, really. Cool. This is my diet plan. I've done an example on the right, but these next two slides using the calorie calculator website, linked it at the bottom left corner. I'll put it in the description as well. So these are my stats. I'm 192 centimeters. I'm pretty sure it's 6'3". Currently my weight is at 105 kilograms. With the exercise, what I've done is I do less because I do cardio every day, pretty intense cardio, where my heart rate goes above 150 beats per minute, and I think it's beats per minute, yeah. So that is my tip because if you say you do more cardio than what it is, your amount of calories will increase, and let's say you don't always stick to that activity level, you will end up eating more calories than you should be, and you will not lose the weight. So make sure that have you set a lower cardio. What am I saying? Make sure you set a lower activity level so that you get a more reasonable limit for I guess, your calculation. And yeah, The calculator is your friend. Be very honest when you put your stats in. In fact, be too honest. Say you do less than what you actually do, because then it's really going to pay off in the end. So these are my results based off those stats I input earlier. For reference, if you didn't look, they are these here. I use metric units. I can use US units, but I'd have to do a pound conversion, and I really couldn't be bothered to do that. I operate in kilograms. Here we go. So this makes life very, very easy. Gives you exactly what you need to know. This is a rough estimate, obviously. Everyone's metabolism is different. This is a rough guide to follow. So yeah, using this, you can know exactly how much you need to eat, or roughly how much you need to eat to lose these, I guess, these brackets of weight. So I wouldn't go for the extreme weight loss. You're going to really, really struggle. As if you really, really need to. And this is just something diet. This isn't even your calories because we put in less than what we actually do. So if I put in what I actually did, it'd probably say I need to eat something like 3,500 calories a day just to stay at the way I am. So this gives me a realistic guide to calculating that calorie limits. So I'll be going with the 2,458 calories, so there's weight loss of 0.5 kilograms a week. I think that's sensible, it's stable, and I'll show you later on how I gain that actually losing 1 kilogram a week, even though I'm only eating 0.5 kilograms a week. Wait, that didn't make any sense. I'm only eating. Okay. I'll show you how I actually lose 1 kilogram a week while only eating at the losing 0.5 kilogram a week of 2,500 calories. So these are my sources. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. For my proteins and fats, it's right there. Chicken and beef. That's within my price range for the amount I get. Eggs, game changer. Pretty sure they're the most synthesized form of protein in terms of you gain about 40% of the actual protein when you consume an egg, as opposed to chicken and beef. That's about 30% from sources I've seen. I don't know how relevant they are, but that's what I've seen. Try and keep everything natural, nothing frozen, nothing man-made, no water added to my chicken, no low quality beef, water added to it. Eggs I get in large batches. I try and get grass corn fed. I think it's corn fed, yeah. Not caged. It can be hard though, and you don't know what a lot of these providers are doing. Obviously, you want the chickens to have a good quality of life. I assume good quality of life will equal good quality meats. Like how a wagyu steak or wagyu beef is tastes better, better quality because the animals are treated with better care. I'm not a vegan or an animal support, like animal rights supporter by any stretch of the imagination, but obviously try and keep things as natural as possible. That's why people who live on a farm may have an advantage where they get really, really good quality out of all their food choices. Obviously, real cow butter, I am not a fan of the seed oils or fake spreads you can get in the UK, where it's brands like I can't believe it's not butter, because it's seed oils which are not good for men. They will reduce your testosterone, increase your estrogen, and basically turn you into a woman. So you want to keep it as natural as possible. You know, how else are you going to get big old guns, big muscles, big back, big legs, if you don't eat natural testosterone boosting foods, like eggs, for example? Carbs, try and keep it very limited to, well, really, this is it. It's a bread. BOW, brown and white, I don't really care. Brown has more calories but less sugar. White has less calories but more sugar, so I don't really care too much. I don't eat that much bread. Rice, try and keep it as natural as possible. I go for basmati rice, so South Asian style rice, or long grain or jasmine rice. I don't really mind. It's all the same in my opinion if I'm making it. And then oats, just keep it natural. Steel rolled oats, I'm pretty sure it's the word, or steel cut oats. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, so my personal meal structure. This is what I've been doing right now, and this is what I eat in a day. These things are very easy to make. Take 15 minutes to make meal one. Meal two is about 5 minutes. Pretty straightforward. The oats come in instant oats fashion. And the white coffees are very small amounts of milk, maybe about 2 scoops of coffee. No sugar, maybe honey sometimes, but that's about 50 calories, I want to say. So negligible in that fact, but I will factor it in later on. Cool. The breakdown. As you see on the screen, meal one, for the amount I have, this is what it turns out to be. So meal one is about 1,100 calories with about 120 grams of protein. Meal two, about 1,000 calories with 75 grams of protein. It seems a bit extreme, but I only have 2 meals in a day. I found that's what works best for me. It may be different for you. You may want to separate meal one into 2 meals. I've seen that is actually would be quite sensible. Then you feel like you're eating more throughout the day, as opposed to just eating 2 massive meals in one go. Because these meals really do sit in your stomach for quite a while. Pardon me, not the most digestible food in terms of rapid digestion in like half an hour. It may take an hour. You want to go on a walk after you eat. What I tend to do is I have meal one at work, and I will go on a quick 15-minute walk just to walk off the initial weight of the food. But yeah, this is what I eat. Pretty straightforward. No real sauces. Beef mince has fat in it, so that sort of gives it a bit of flavor. The seasonings I use are very minimal. I use more curry-based seasoning. They come in the biggest amounts for the best price. So I use like tandoori spice, curry spice, obviously salt, black pepper, garlic occasionally. And I use both the same seasonings on both. And then with meal two, I use mustard and ketchup. There is no way you can eat eggs plain with no ketchup, no mustard. You've got to have something like that with them. So that's what I'll be doing. Uh, yeah. So yeah, this is the breakdown. Um, as you can see, that is my total, including the oats I mentioned earlier and the coffee. 2 protein in coffee. I put it just because there is protein in the milk. And yeah, so the total is rounded up to 2,450. That is including everything, and might be, well, you can see where I've actually rounded up on my meal one and meal two on the calorie end, and also on the oats and the coffees. Everything's rounded up because if you round up and then if you don't round up and you eat this whole week's worth of food or this day's worth of food and you notice you haven't lost weight or gained weight, you're going to be thinking, wait, what's going on? Where if you round up and you assume your meals are more than what they are, you will end up losing the weight because you've realized, oh, I've actually only eaten like 2,500. Well, I think I've only eaten 2,500. I've limited myself to 2,500, where the food might actually only be 2,300. And maybe you weren't honest with yourself in other parts. But if you always round up when it comes to food, it'll pay off in the long run because you're eating less. And if you, let's say you round down, say I only eat 1,000, then you think you have more of a, I guess, a buffer. Then you may think, oh, okay, I've only had 2,300 calories in the day. Let me have a chocolate bar. When really, your food might actually be more because nothing is accurate when it comes to weights of food. You know, when you get in a packet, it might not be 500 grams, it might be 520 or 480. So rounding up in terms of food is always good. So you always stay in control of how much you're eating and never think that there's like a buffer so you can have more or disappoint yourself in the long run where you've not lost any weight because you thought you were eating less, but really it's more, you know? I hope that makes sense. So yeah, in terms of the uh, protein per pound thing I was talking about, where I am about 230 pounds, I would need, if I do the zero point 0.8 calculation, I'm obviously in range 230 times 0 0.8, 184. So it's a difference of 230 and 184, which is about 50 grams of protein. So I'm going to eat at that because I think once I get down to that weight, that'll be much more manageable, and then I can actually build muscle back if I lose any. That's my thoughts, anyways. But I'm not really concerned about how much protein. I'm over 200 grams of protein, which is plenty. when it comes to the general scope. I'm obviously a bigger human, so I need to eat more to maintain. That just makes sense. 6'3", 230 pounds or 105 kilograms. But yeah, that's how it works out for me. Cool. This is just a very simple breakdown, putting into words. To exist, I need 3,000, eating 2,500. It works out to be a 0.5 kilogram a week loss. For people who want the maths, in 1 pound of fat, there is 3,500 calories. If I lose 500 calories a week, 500 calories a day, that is 3,500 calories a week. A pound of fat is 2 pounds to kilo conversion. So it's 2.25 pounds to a kilo, cut down half a kilo. So that's the maths on that end. And obviously, when using metric units, there's a little bit of rounding and difference. That's why I put plus minus, the symbol next to 0.5, if you haven't seen it before. And then to achieve my 1 kilo a week loss I mentioned at the start of the video, doing an extra 500 calories worth of cardio that I wouldn't normally do creates that extra 500 calorie loss daily, which totals up to about 1,000 calories under my maintenance, which means I do lose a kilo a week. If we quickly go back to this chart, you can see here, this difference is 500. So losing another 500, I gain this 1 kilo a week loss mentioned here. So yeah, that is that. And then, yeah, so the benefits of doing that is obviously you lose weight. Doing the extra cardio supports your heart function. It's good on your body to do cardio. You also feel the weight, if that makes any sense. So when you lose the weight and you still do the cardio, you are better because you don't have as much weight on you. And then, yeah, you could also, doing this method, if you're eating under your maintenance, you lose the weight without doing extra cardio. So that makes very clear sense in my opinion. And also, I worked it out. I might take a picture and show you. I may take a picture and put it in at some point in the video, but I have a chart here, which are my diet guidelines. So at 100 kilos, I need to eat 2,880 calories to exist or to stay that weight. And then when I go down to 75 kilos, I need to eat 2,550 calories to exist at that weight and at my stats. And 170 grams of protein. I'll put it in, if I'm in the top right corner. Hope it's alright, hope you can see. If I'm in the top right corner, I'll be putting it here, a picture of that. And that's the thoughts around it. If I stay at this and I keep on kind, obviously you'll get less and less and less the closer I get to my desired weight. But that's my philosophy on that. And in terms of the drawbacks, the only way I can lose a kilo a week is doing that extra 500 calories of cardio with my structure. Otherwise, I'd have to eat 500 calories less food, which would probably be all my carb sources because the proteins are quite heavy and, well, there's a lot of protein, so yeah. And then obviously you get food cravings because you're under your maintenance. But depending on how you eat, you can eat in a way where you eat at the times where you're going to be the most hungry. So let's say you do cardio in the morning. If you eat around midday, you will quench that hunger. Have coffees throughout the day. Coffees will suppress appetite, and eating at the end of the day, you can work it out so that you can lose the most amount of weight in the best amount of time. And also, throughout the day, planning out your meals can really help in terms of cravings and hunger spikes, things like that. Yeah, that's what that means. And in terms of my breakdown, okay, so top things for me to tell you, Alex, being on point, track things. Well, being on point and tracking it to the two in one, I guess. Being on point, make sure you eat the right thing at the right time. every day. Don't get distracted. Don't go buying food. So staying in control of my cravings. If I see something, don't buy it. Don't eat it. Just stick to it. And if you really need to eat something else, like make sure it's a very low calorie option, like some fruit, some popcorn perhaps. That's a lot of volume with less calories. So stay on point, stay on track. Best advice I can give myself, I guess. Cardio matters. Cardio is important. Whether you hurt, whether you ache, just do some cardio. Or if you can't even do the run, just try and burn 500 calories of cardio extra. So 500 calories by doing cardio extra. It's really, really going to help in terms of losing that weight. If you can't run, do it in another form. Just make sure you do cardio. And in general, it's good to elevate your heart rate above, well, I think double above your resting. So if your resting is about 60, bring it up to like 150, bring it up to 130, above double, just to spike heart rate. It's good for your testosterone as well as a man. It's good for your heart. It's good for your cardiovascular health. I believe it delays any cardiovascular related health issues. It's really important. And then ultimately tracking your progression. Apps like MyFitnessPal or having a notes app on your phone and just tracking your weight every week keeps you in control. If anything seems to be not following a general trend, you can go back to your get your app or your reference for your diet. You can see where you can change things. It's all it's an experiment. You try things, if they don't work, try something different. Sometimes it takes a few weeks for something to start working. There's something called I think it's called the reconstruction phase or the rebuilding phase, where you suddenly switch your diet. You need to wait for it to take an effect because your body is in shock when things change. It's how the body works. It's a brilliant thing. It adapts to changes like that. Like when you suddenly drop your calories, it holds onto your fat stores because it knows that it needs energy from there when you have less energy coming in, because that's all calories is. It's just energy. And yeah, these points are really important. Always stay on top of things, because the second you start not stay on top of it, things are going to go out of whack. You're going to start binging. Your weight setting and spike up, and it's a lot easier to put on the weight than it is to lose the weight. So staying in control of these things is super, super important. I believe that's it. Like I said in the last video was workout. It's really as simple as that. Just staying on top of things, following a plan, using maths to figure things out. It's really just calories in versus calories out. If you put 3,000 in, 2,500 out, you're gonna gain 500. If you put 2,000 in, 2,500 is coming out, you're gonna lose 500. Super simple, super easy. I'll probably do an update on this video. Maybe once I've got to that desired weight, or maybe once I've gone below 90 kilos. Maybe I've changed things so I can lose the weight at the same rate. But yeah, that's it. Hope you guys have a lovely morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And I will catch you on the next video. Peace.